This is The Wire for 2300 Zulu, November 25th, 2025. Precedence is routine. Information cutoff is 2200. Bottom line up front. GDP data to not be released for the third quarter of 2025. Corruption continues in Minneapolis. Khalistan referendum vote causes concern in Canada. Peace talks make good progress in Ukraine. Beginning with international events, in Europe, peace talks continue between the United States and Russia. The White House has stated that so far, all sides have agreed to the bulk of the plan as written. However, a few details still remain to work out. Otherwise, the war continues on, with a series of drone attacks being carried out by Russia overnight, some of which flew all the way to Moldova and Romania. Analysts comment. The peace talks are closer to a deal than in recent memory, though, as always, some minor detail can derail things at the very last minute. Even so, all sides confirm that pretty much all of the highly controversial items have reached a point of agreement, so as it stands, the major hurdles have been cleared regarding the signing of a peace deal. In Canada, yesterday the Khalistan referendum vote was carried out nationwide, which resulted in terrorism concerns due to demonstrations present at polling places. This vote has come about as the Sikh community in Canada has desired the creation of a Sikh-only district, Khalistan, back in India due to their cultural differences in India with other groups. As such, this vote was not anything organized by the Canadian government. None of these polling places were legitimate. This was purely a private endeavor to hold a non-binding vote on whether or not to create a new autonomous district within India. Analysts comment. Beyond the obvious concerns with a diaspora being large enough to hold a vote on a district in another country entirely, the main issue with this is that this entire affair was organized by Gurpatwant Singh Pannoon, who is an activist currently characterized as a terrorist back in India. Many instances were reported of threats being chanted at local events, which was cause for concern as the social issue of Sikh independence is a very vitriolic internal issue in India itself, which has now transitioned to Canada. Roughly 53,000 Sikhs are estimated to have participated in the vote. On the home front, in Washington, D.C., the White House announced yesterday afternoon that the GDP report for the third quarter of 2025 will also not be released, along with the jobs report and the consumer price index report for October. The reason provided by the White House is the same as the other reports which will not be released, namely that the government shutdown prevented accurate data from being collected. Analysts comment. At this point, anything to do with the economy is either speculation or gambling. However, these excuses are flimsy at best. Not releasing critical economic indicator data is being perceived as covering up something, so either way, it's probably not a positive indicator for the status of the economy. In Chicago, the victim of the immolation attack from a few days ago has been identified as Bethany McGee. She survived the attack and remains in critical condition, with severe burns affecting over half her body. In Minnesota, yesterday a judge overturned the conviction of Abdifatah Yusuf, who was convicted by a jury of gross Medicaid fraud for stealing roughly $7.2 million from the healthcare system by running many different healthcare companies out of his residential address, all of which were fraudulent. The jury agreed with the prosecution in that he was clearly running a Medicaid overbilling scam, and he was convicted as such. Despite the overwhelming evidence that resulted in his conviction, Judge Sarah West threw out the jury's verdict and acquitted Yusuf herself. Analyst comments for this wire. This case might shed some light on exactly how widespread fraud is in Minneapolis. Even when convicted by a jury due to a stack of evidence implicating them, a judge can always throw out any verdict and rule based on their personal feelings. Even in her own verdict, Judge West admitted that fraud was conducted, however she acquitted Yusuf anyway. This effectively makes a trial by jury of one's peers irrelevant and thus contributes to the impressive level of fraud that continues to be carried out throughout Minneapolis. This will now lead to other cases of jury verdicts being overturned simply based on a judge's personal feelings, and not the law. This has always been the case throughout the American justice system. However, with the current spotlight on fraud in Minneapolis, including potential federal involvement at this point, other fraud cases will surely be overturned in the coming weeks. This concludes The Wire for 2300 Zulu, November 25th, 2025.